Let your imagination soar with Audible. With stories across every genre, from expert advice to fantasy, you'll be inspired to imagine new worlds, possibilities, and ways of thinking. Listening can even lead to a positive change in your mood, habits, and overall well-being. As an Audible member, you'll get to choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog, including bestsellers and new releases. Allow yourself to delve into the spooky this season by listening to classics like Stephen King's The Shining and Pet Sematary. There's more to imagine when you listen. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500. That's audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500.
Worried about letting someone else pick out the perfect avocado for your perfect impress them on the third date guacamole? Well, good thing Instacart shoppers are as picky as you are. They find ripe avocados like it's their guac on the line. They are milk expiration date detectives. They bag eggs like the 12 precious pieces of cargo they are. So let Instacart shoppers overthink your groceries so that you can overthink what you'll wear on that third date. Download the Instacart app today to get free delivery on your first 3 orders, while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Let's chat. It's hard. You want to talk? I know, that's disappointing. Sit back. Let's work this out. How's it going? What are we doing here? Where are you going? Hey there. Wow. It's not always easy. It's amazing if you think about it. Let's think about this. Strange. I have some thoughts about that. Life is hard. Trauma bonded.
All right, well, I looked up Cartesian Doubt.
Yeah, or is it Cartesian? Or is it Cartesian American?
Artesian. Is it artisan or artesian? Anyways, I said this to Gemini on Google. This is their chat GPT, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, can you explain the theory of Cartesian doubt to me like I'm 5 years old?
Oh.
And they said back to me, okay, imagine you're eating your favorite ice cream. You think it's real, right? But what if it's just a dream? Or what if a sneaky magician is tricking you? Descartes, a really smart guy, thought about things like this. He wondered if anything we think we know is really true, so he decided to doubt everything just to be sure. He even doubted if he was really eating ice cream. This is called Cartesian doubt. It's like playing a game of what if to see what we can really be sure of. Descartes played this game until he found one thing he couldn't doubt, that he was thinking about doubting. So even if you're dreaming or being tricked, you can still be sure that you're thinking. That's the idea behind I think, therefore I am.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. And I Cartesian doubt all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mostly Cartesian doubt about whether I'm actually alive or not. And I'm concerned that I won't know when I'm dead, which I probably won't.
I don't do the dead thing. It just happened to me yesterday. I was leaving my house, closed the door. Nobody was outside. And I was like, wait. And I was like, am I dreaming that I actually have the life that I have? Like my family. Is my family my family? Am I actually by myself and none of them exist? But I think they do. And everybody else around me just pretends to.
Like, yeah, T, those are your kids. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a weird thing to reveal.
Welcome to Trauma Bonded. I'm Elly Westberg here with Therese Garcia.
Hello.
And today we're discussing episode 338 of the podcast. This is actually happening. What if you thought you got away with it?
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah. A brief summary. Our storyteller, Patrick Hibbard, grew up a latchkey kid and found the numbness and inclusion alcohol brings early in his life. After run-ins with crime and trouble completing his freshman year of high school, he drops out and thus begins his search to get high and drunk all that he can. One night, he and his friends get drunk and beat a man in a violent rage and leave him for dead in a ditch. The man dies, and Patrick leans into this idea that this is who he is now. He runs down a rabbit hole of delusion and drug use, crime, and escapism, moving house and job a lot, and eventually the new Mexican police come to arrest him. He goes to prison, gets a sweet deal, and this doesn't change him. He continues to lean into the narrative that he is bad. When he gets out, he continues the cycle of drugs, alcohol, crime, and prison. On his final prison release, a moment of serendipity provides him the clarity he needs and decides he must leave the old Patrick behind in prison, and he enters the world as a blank slate. He finds safety and acceptance in 12-step meetings and just keeps going. He starts to believe in the idea that he is a good person. He completely turns his life from one of using others to one of service. He pursues education, has a family, and now works in public health using his past as part of his professional acumen. And full disclosure, I'm the showrunner for This Is Actually Happening, and T knows nothing about anything. She comes in fresh. And this show, Trauma/Bonded, is for the listeners, a space where we can talk about each episode, digest it, and reflect on it with empathy and also a bit of levity. That's Trauma Bonded. T, what stuck out to you as the heart of Patrick's story?
Thank you, Elly. I went with one word for his story today. And I went with resolve. He has a strong dedication, really, to his identity. Really, in the beginning, after the murder, this is who I am now. I'm bad, right?
Yeah.
I'm a criminal. This is how I'm tough. This is how I'm going to be. And that's like when he's in prison, that's him, right? The years go on. But also, you know, something clicks for him when he gets out of prison there. And then he starts getting this resolve and now is determined to kind of overcome these struggles that he went through. And he becomes more vulnerable and starts to understand his past and starts to bring on his actual, I'd say, his identity when he wasn't putting on kind of this mask.
You're right. He does, like, if he good or bad, he really leans into.
Yeah.
He goes in. He's resolved to be the best baddie he can be or the best goodie he can be.
And he was good at it. Yeah.
He's good at being bad, and he sounds like he's good at being good too.
Yeah. And it becomes his identity, even his professional identity. I thought that was pretty cool too.
It truly did sound like that job was created for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. And now, of course, he's transformed and now he's helping others as well as himself. So resolve.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you, Elly.
You're welcome, T. The heart for me was this power of self-belief. So it's kind of just runs right along with what you were saying. You know, Patrick saw himself as a drunk and a druggie, a criminal, a manipulator, entitled, selfish, and he leaned into that and he believed who he was. And the more he acted, the more the evidence stacked up proving that self-belief. And then he turned 180 degrees into a person of service, a person who didn't hurt anyone else, a person who believed he could do good things, and he knew he had to act so that the evidence could stack up again in support of the idea that he was a good now.
I love that. They're very similar.
They are.
I thought about that. Yeah, the power that you have.
Well, it's interesting. I think we hear a lot about in terms of like kids and education, like you've heard this before, kids rise to the expectations that you set for them. And if you start treating a kid that's acting out maybe like he's going to act out, he's probably going to act out. And we do it to ourselves all the time. And this is where the power of positive thinking or trying to build ourselves up, or we tell ourselves like, you got this, you can do this, Elly, like before you're going to give a speech or whatever it is. Like there's something to what we say to ourselves about ourselves. And it can be really, really damaging and mean and terrible. And when your actions start to mirror what those beliefs are, and especially if they're negative, it can be really dire. So the fact that he could like really turn it around
after years of just the same pattern too.
And he did, and it wasn't automatic. There was this like blank slate period where he felt hopeless.
Yeah.
But he just kept going to meetings where he felt warm and safe and accepted. And what he said was so powerful. He just wanted to be somewhere he knew he couldn't hurt someone else.
You know, that was
everything. And then once you do that for a long time and you've kind of gotten rid of the self-belief that you're going to hurt someone, then it's like, what else can you do? If I can stop myself from hurting people, maybe I can take that to the next level and also start to actively help people. He's such a sweetheart. I got to do a follow-up interview with him. It's remarkable. Like, he didn't just go to prison for one thing when he was 17. Like, he was in and out of institutions, from 17, 18 to, what he said, early 30s.
Yeah.
Like, this is a person that should have been sucked in by the system and institutionalized and become just another person that falls through the cracks, and this is their life. And the fact that he could turn it around at that age and create this whole new life for himself, it's quite admirable and unique.
Yeah, the first time he got arrested was 13.
Yeah, that's 20 years of establishing patterns of behavior for yourself. That's half your life.
Pretty much gonna stick to that.
You're probably gonna be that.
Yeah.
Well, let's do line by line here.
Okay.
Props to his mom for leaving a man the first time he pushed her.
While she was pregnant.
Ugh, piece of garbage. He got a stepdad early. It was hard to tell what kind of guy this was in the end.
Yeah.
He was a black sheep of his family because he was interested in civil rights and equity, but then he ends up being kind of a defense lawyer for people in drug trade, it sounded like. No judgment. It's just that feels like a wide breadth of varying causes.
Yeah.
Patrick talks about these late night parties with orgies, which makes me always think of 6 Feet Under, because, Brenda used to, I feel like there was even a flashback of Brenda walking in on an orgy. And I always thought, like, that's just so Hollywood to come up with this idea. But like, kids really went through this kind of shit. Can you imagine? Can you imagine an orgy in your house? It's just so funny.
Like right now?
It's not funny, but it like, I'm thinking about you having one in your house. I'm trying to think of, like, who would even come?
I know.
What would it look like?
If for some reason we decided to have any kind of orgy, I'm just saying I would lock the door. I would have a responsible orgy. Really. No kid is walking in on an orgy in this house.
Where are you going to have it? In your bedroom?
The bedroom.
You can't have a whole orgy in your one bedroom.
Well, what is an orgy? How many people?
Orgies take over a space.
Well, then we're getting a babysitter, aren't we? Like, I'm not... There's no possibility of one of the children walking in.
They spill into the kitchen. They spill into the There's a lot of spilling. It's going to be in the pool.
I thought it was 3 or more. No, that's a threesome. The orgy is like a lot.
At least 7.
Does Gemini know?
Okay, let me ask. Oh my God.
Like, what's minimum number on an orgy?
She says, there's no specific number that defines an orgy. It's more about the nature of the activity than the number of participants.
Oh.
Generally, an orgy involves multiple people engaging in open and unrestrained sexual activity with each other. See, so you can't restrain it to the bedroom. It's going to be all over the house.
Oh, that's why I'm saying that. It'd be responsible in terms of there'd be a babysitter situation and another...
Away from the house.
Yeah. Well, you don't think that we'd have an orgy here? I've had orgies. You don't know.
I think I do.
Enough about orgies.
Assuming you're going to have an orgy in your house, put your kids to bed. You put a sign on the door that says no orgy spillage in this room, like off limits. You can go any other space where orgies could go, but not in this room. And a kid walks out and you're,
It must be very...
traumatic. How does that affect a kid?
It's confusing. It's confusing and gross.
Disgusting.
And I just totally awful.
Do people know to leave an orgy before the kids get up in the morning? How do you know an orgy's over?
It hasn't been planned. If it's been planned, they shouldn't even be in the house. Was it unplanned? Like you were just having a dinner party and they're like, okay, let's do that.
It starts getting weird.
I don't know.
I mean, he mentions that they both kind of leaned into this hedonistic lifestyle. So it just sounds like they were like, well, if the kids come and see it, then whatever. Like, we're going to do what we want to do. It's fucked up. And it does make you wonder, like, how else this household was. Because I doubt, like, mom's getting up at 7 and making, like, turkey sausage for breakfast, I doubt. Maybe. I don't know. Can you transition? That's what I'm asking. Can you transition from an orgy to like an orgy mom to just like a breakfast mom?
Well, you better. I think. Why not? Why can't you?
It just feels like an orgy mom she probably is busy all night, and it just might be hard for her to get up in the morning. That's all I'm saying.
Again, I still feel like you can be a responsible orgy mom. Like,
You think?
yeah, like you could totally have an orgy from like 7 to 12. Go to sleep, right?
Can you put an end time on an orgy?
These are all good questions, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, I would end and get some sleep. You're also not getting, like, you're not orgying every single night, maybe. And then one night you only get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and you still get up to make breakfast.
I suppose it's possible.
Or maybe you keep it to the weekends, and then you wake up a little later, and then you make breakfast a little later.
Okay. If any of you are out there or
Any orgy moms out there, help
any
us
orgy
out.
moms or dads, come at us.
Yeah.
How do you mix orgy mom or dad with breakfast mom or dad? That's all
Yeah.
we're asking. And no shaming at all.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being judgy.
You're not being judged. I feel like I'm the one. You're
No.
saying it's easy to be an orgy mom to a breakfast mom. I'm saying I don't think it can happen. And I think we both agree, and I think everyone would agree, though, you shouldn't subject your kid to it, and they shouldn't be walking in on orgies around the house.
Nothing's easy. I don't know why I'm saying it's easy. Everything's hard. I'm a Cheez-Its watching Prison Break until 10 o'clock at night, Mom. And I'm still tired in the morning making breakfast. I don't know.
Can you imagine getting pounded all night in the living room and then have to go and make sausage? Okay.
Let's move on.
I feel like we talked about orgies for like 15 minutes.
This was like a blip.
I am though so fascinated with how these households work.
Me too. I don't get it. Like, I know they didn't do orgies every single night. And then I just don't understand, like, what's the day-to-day like?
Feels like it's a lot of upkeep. You probably have to disinfect a lot.
I'm surprised no one has an STD.
People that come to the house, what if you don't know them? They're just spilling their seed all over your house. Ugh. But he talks about how his earliest memory is of feeling awkward and different and a piece of shit and feelings of wanting to die, which is very dark for that being your earliest memory. And he said he even as young as 8, he was practicing this Cartesian doubt that we discussed. When he was 8, they moved to New Mexico. And sidebar, I know that our audience is brilliant. They're brilliant people.
Brillianter than us. That's for sure.
More brilliant, yeah. And they know that New Mexico is a state in the United States of America. Did you know that a substantial portion of people, and I don't have numbers, don't realize that New Mexico is part of the U.S.? They think it's part of Mexico.
Just the new one?
Like, how do you make it to adulthood without memorizing all the states and their capitals, right?
That I don't know. I know, yeah.
No, but I looked this up because I read this somewhere, and
People think it's part of Mexico, or it is Mexico.
I asked Gemini, do people mistakenly believe that New Mexico isn't in America? And AI told me, yes, some people mistakenly believe that New Mexico is not part of the United States.
You know what? New Hampshire is part of Hampshire. York. There's York. Fun fact.
Fun fact.
Fun fact and research alert.
Fun fact, people are fucking stupid.
Yeah.
He's an outsider. He's made fun of for his parents being heathens.
I love that. I'm like, why are we ashamed by this? I'm like, you're the best one.
Well, but when you're a kid and all your friends believe one way, you just want to believe like they do. I am curious as to know how all these kids would know that your parents are heathen orgiasts.
Yeah, that's weird.
He mentions there's this kind of machismo there, and he starts fighting young, and they have money in a poverty area. He's a latchkey kid, as most of us Gen Xers were. I wasn't. Were you a latchkey kid?
Are you Gen X?
Yeah. So are you.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
Am I?
It goes to 1980.
Oh.
You're an exennial because you're a cusper.
Yeah. No, I was not a latchkey kid.
So he's a latchkey kid, 9 or 10 years old, and he spends a lot of time alone in the desert. And by the time he's 12, 13, he's stealing booze. And he talks about this camping trip. This is another big point for me, how he mixed all the liquors together.
He discovered Long Island iced teas. Tasted good.
Right, kids don't think booze tastes good.
Yeah.
But one thing that comes from this camping trip is he says that, and this is a first kind of big turning point for him, is he had this feeling of being okay.
Yeah.
What do you think that he means by that?
I've had that feeling many a times. When you're drinking, having a couple drinks, you're like, I feel good. Like you just feel fine,
Everything is fine.
Everything's fine now that I've had this drink.
Do you recall your first time drinking or being drunk?
Yeah. Well, especially because mine was like in high school and I was having drinks with the popular kids.
Mm.
And I felt kind of like not popular,
Mm-hmm.
simplifying. But, and then, then you're like, whoa. And then I felt like, I don't know. And I felt more relaxed as opposed to a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
And it does really help you out, make you feel good.
Yeah.
And I had whiskey. It was Jack Daniels at the children's playground in San Francisco and at Golden Gate Park.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think the first time I got drunk was with the debate team.
Yeah, it was.
We went to Leah, what was her name? Leah something. She had an apartment, which all of us thought was weird and cool. Like she lived there with her mom because we all had houses in the suburbs,
Yeah.
I felt cool, but I drove home that night and
Oh my
I
God.
felt so much guilt the next day at church that I never did it again in high school.
That's crazy.
I know. Anywhoosie. So by feeling okay, he's probably referring to like he was probably affable and witty and himself and probably felt cool to do it with his friends. And there's this numbness that comes from drinking. And yeah, once you're flowing, you're just in the flow of the booze, you can tell yourself that everything's going to be okay.
And I want this feeling again and again.
And then everything really starts to spiral from there because up to that point in 7th grade, he'd been a good student. And now everything's gone downhill in 8th grade. He finds pot in the house. He gets caught. And his mom's reaction to that is not, are you okay? Do we need to figure out why you're using substances at this age? No, that's not what she said.
No.
She said, stay out of my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then smacks him.
That is not a breakfast mom. That's an orgy mom.
That's not a breakfast. And that's not a turkey sausage mom.
Ooh.
No, sir.
Ugh. And it feels like such a pivotal moment. And he just learned he better cover his crimes better. It didn't tell him he shouldn't keep imbibing in drugs and alcohol. It told him hide your shit better. And he says himself, he broke into homes to eat cereal.
It's confusing, their house. Because like no sugary cereal, no TV, but pot and orgies.
Well, isn't that kind of what hippie is? Like you eat granola, and you hug trees, but you fuck whoever you want, and you smoke a lot of weed.
Is that what that is? And you smack people when you're mad at them.
I think that's a whole thing.
Hippies do get mad, right? That's controversial. And I just said.
Well, this is a boomer hippie. And his first arrest is at 13, and he lives under this idea that all laws are bullshit and all you have to do is just get away with it. He took 3 tries as his freshman year.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And he's offered you can get your GED and go to work. And he's excited to do that. And his mom divorces his stepdad and gets a new boyfriend, moves to Florida.
Why is everyone leaving all the time? Like, wasn't that the last episode? They're like, okay, I got a new boyfriend. I'm leaving now.
Bye.
What happened? Like,
yeah.
See you later. You can fend for yourself, right, child?
Yeah.
What is that?
He doesn't paint his mother in the best light.
No.
Let's say that. She started off strong. Like, she knew to leave a man that pushed her when she was pregnant. She started off really strong, and then she just kept kind of going downhill from there. Again, I don't want to judge her. I don't know her, but it's not sounding great. And then she ends up in Florida, like, for fuck's sake. And he convinces his mom to let him live in the house.
She's like, do whatever. That's fine. Yeah, do whatever.
And it was just a constant party.
You've already been arrested. It's fine.
I pictured, like, Breaking Bad when Jesse falls off the wagon and he doesn't want to be alone in his house after he buys it. And it's just a constant, like, meth party happening. He just wakes up, wants to get the party going again. He leaves. He comes back. And then people are like, Jesse, we want to go home and go to bed. And he's like, no, because he just doesn't want to be alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very sad. So he's partying a lot, and to the point where it's now affecting him physically. It's true sickness and addiction. He gets the shakes. He has to walk out to have a drink of a warm keg of beer to to calm him down, basically. And he gets kicked out of the house at some point, and his whole life is dedicated to finding and consuming substances. I can't imagine what it's like to have like all of your ambition rooted out of you. I'm not the most ambitious person in the world. I'm barely hanging on. But to just, and I get it at that age, but even at that age, I was such a people pleaser. I was so interested in making sure I didn't disappoint adults in my life. I just can't imagine that being your only goal. But it's a sickness. It's a disease. And now comes this big night in question. This night that changes everything for him. They're drunk on 40s. They find a native man who's also drunk. They basically abduct him under the guise of taking him home.
They find out, they think that he has a bunch of money.
Right. And when they look in his wallet and see he has $1, it sends them into a blind rage. He says his rage bubbled up, and it sounds like they beat him severely and left him in a ditch. It's unclear if I know that he died of exposure, but obviously he was left unconscious and harmed and injured in this ditch by these boys. And Patrick says all of us have a capacity to be this violent. Do you think that's true?
I think it is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we have the power to do anything that we can physically do,
Have you ever been in a violent rage where you thought you could really hurt someone? You don't have siblings. So I was pretty awful to my sister Sarah when we were kids, like young kids.
Oh.
I remember I have a distinct memory of having to sit on my hands so I wouldn't hit her.
Really?
Yeah. And if you and I say all this to say, like, if you haven't ever hurt someone with your hands, it's probably, as an adult, you probably think, well, this is unimaginable. I would never hurt someone with my hands. But if this is the life you've grown up living, and you're used to having your hands on someone, and your brain isn't finished developing because you're a kid, I can see how that. I mean, I remember feeling rage. And she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just being a kid sister. She was 5 years younger than me. So she was just, think about the ages of maybe I'm 12 and she's 7. Like, I used to really hit her hard.
God.
I know. I feel terrible about that. Like I'd smack her open-handed kind of in the back. But I'd use like my full strength.
No, I felt anger before.
To the point where you could put your hands on someone?
I mean, I definitely could. I don't think anybody could. I don't think I have. But that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's unimaginable. I think it's definitely.
And I grew up in a home where my parents didn't put their hands on us. So for me to act like that, I have a lot of shame about that.
Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes, like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales. And we've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/trial and get started.
This is a PSA, or public sock announcement. Experts have declared Bombas socks as the best way to warm up chilly feet. These pairs are super cushy, soft, and designed for maximum coziness. Plus, for every pair purchased, another pair will be donated, so someone in need of essential clothing can stay warm this winter. Go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery.
That I did that.
Have you talked with Sarah about it?
Yeah.
Did Sarah fight back? Was she so little, maybe?
No.
Oh,
All she wanted to do was be close to me.
that's sad.
Really sad. Anywho, let's talk about Patrick. So,
Okay, but yeah, I don't think it's unimaginable. I think that's part of the power, right?
and then to think about it in terms of what he was doing, and there's other boys there, and everyone is just sort of essentially egging each other on. There's no voice of reason going, hey, we should stop it, knock it off. And he said this logical part of him shut off, and he kind of watched himself and he was horrified at himself. And this is another big turning point for him. You know, he mentions that they took this $1 and bought a soda. It feels like a detail that he's carried around with him.
Yeah.
Why do you think that sticks to him?
I mean, it just feels so flippant. I mean, they took the $1 and bought a soda, and the guy died.
Yeah. It feels like a detail you'd keep with you.
Yeah. His life was worth so much more than that $1 and that soda, you know?
They see the story in the paper. They find out he's died. And he said, and Patrick says this line that I wrote down because I thought it was so heavy when he says, there was no rationalizing that I was a free spirit when I took someone else's life.
Yeah.
I'm just a freewheeling kid. I have nothing.
Yeah, I'm just playing it. Yeah.
Nothing to worry about. I'm out with my friends. We're drinking. We're drugging. We're like just having a good time, man. Living in the moment. Whatever. Who cares?
Not anymore.
But as soon as your good time takes the life of someone else,
that changes everything.
It changes everything. You've gone too far. They decide to keep this secret, but of course he spilled to a woman that would eventually be his downfall. And he says that but for lack of money, he would have been dead because he wanted to check out completely. And he and his cohorts and the crime, they would cry together. They felt their lives were shattered, and I think what was really shattered was their innocence. Now they're leaning into this idea that this is who we are now.
Yeah.
Damn it, to have that characterization of yourself, I'm a murderer now. Like, how do you walk around the planet like that?
Yeah, now you can just keep, breaking into houses, and that's not even as bad.
There's literally nothing else worse that you could do. You've taken someone's life. That's it. So everything else probably seems juvenile to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't turn him around. It makes him lean into this idea that he's bad, and he gets done up for, and it sounds like he's a really terrible criminal. He gets done up for the burglary. When he gets out of that, he moves to Florida to do drugs with his mom and her boyfriend. Again, not a breakfast mom, T.
No, I don't think so.
And then he found crack.
Yeah.
And in his mind, the cure for alcoholism was crack. I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, I don't feel like drinking anymore.
What do you think's worse for your body, crack or alcohol? Hard to say.
I feel like crack might be.
Should I ask? No, I won't ask ChatGPT.
That's whack. That's all I know.
This next part especially rung true to me. He was like, okay, I'm going to get off work. I'm just going to have a couple of drinks. And then I'm going to take the rest of my pay. I'm going to pay rent.
Yep,
I'm going to buy
intentions there.
I'm going to start a cleanse. I'm going to buy some spinach.
Clean the house.
I'm going to maybe I'll start running. But as soon as he got a couple drinks in him, he wanted crack. I also know this feeling. I felt this way before, and it scared me. Like when I used to drink a lot, and I was smoking, I would be drinking and smoking and thinking it's not enough. There's something else I'm missing. But then in my head, I'd be like, what else? What else could you get, Elly? Like, there's nothing else you could do.
Crack?
It's possible, though, that if I would have ever tried crack, then yeah, I'd be thinking about crack.
It's highly addictive.
Yeah, it's highly addictive. But he recognizes that this cycle is unsustainable. So he does go to rehab, his first rehab at 22. He gets sober. He's riding a bike. He sees a guy. He says, I don't know, you got some crack? It's not long after that he gets his first, he gets a message from a detective in New Mexico. And long story short, he gets arrested for murder. But
he thought he got away with it.
Yeah, he did. another instance of him thinking he's getting away with it. And he gets arrested and he has a sense of relief.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah. It's always in the back of your head, right? I feel like, is it today I'm going to get caught? Is it safe?
Yeah.
You finally get caught.
The police arrest him for murder.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing a second-degree murder plea bargain, and it's 9 years, but it sounds like he gets 4.5 years for good behavior. What do you think about this? A 9-year sentence for murder? I mean, I get it. It's a second-degree plea bargain, but it feels too little, doesn't it?
Yeah, I feel like I didn't get all the details maybe too, because they said it was from exposure. Was that only really to get more information, to try to get the actual perps? What was the actual cause of death?
If not for Patrick and his friends doing what they did, he probably would have lived, I think is the idea, which is why it's second degree. There's no premeditation involved. I am shocked, though, that that's still a low sentence.
It does seem low, though.
Especially at this point, he's already been to jail a few times. But he talks about he's kind of interviewed or assessed, and he makes this point. He says out loud, "I'm not an animal. This affected me." And by saying that, the assessment comes out that he's more concerned with himself than the man who died. Do you think that that's fair?
When he said it, I was like, oh, yeah, see, he feels guilt. But then when they're like, oh, yeah, he doesn't really care about the victim or the victim's family, I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. It made sense to me.
It's interesting because, to me, I don't know, I feel like this is a little bit of like presenting it in a way that's kind of unfair, because I think that two things can be true at once. You can feel really guilty and really bad for the harm that you've caused this person and their loss of life and what you've done to their family, but you can also feel badly for what it's done to you and it's how it's impacted the way that you perceive yourself. Who knows? Maybe he didn't show much remorse for the other parties involved. Maybe he only talked about himself. It wasn't clear, but
yeah.
He seemed to agree with the assessment.
He was saying it's needed to.
Yeah. Because he hasn't really changed yet at this point. And it does sound like by him saying, "I'm not an animal," it's him trying to skirt the issue and maybe get a lesser sentence. So he goes to prison. And again, this is another moment in his life that reinforces to him this idea, this is who he is. So he's going to act like it. So that's how he acted in prison. Going to prison taught him nothing. All he wanted to do was get high. And he lists his character defect of trying to fit in.
I'd say so. Yeah.
I think we all have that character defect too, a little bit. He's an addict. He's a bad person. He talks about the culture of incarceration. Tough, violent.
Well, it seems like it might be the only way to survive. You don't want to seem weak, or you could be in danger.
Oh yeah, you got to kick someone's ass the first day or you're going to be a mark. But he's got this self-belief. He's talked himself into his own bullshit, right? He was just there. He didn't participate in the beating. He talks about in the court case, the victim's wife is there and he's believing his own mitigated role, and the wife is there who knows the truth. And how does he rectify it, looking at her and still spouting his own bullshit when she's there to really, she's the one telling him her presence is a reminder that somebody's life was lost, and he couldn't fully get over that, right?
Even if he was just there and just landed a couple punches, or he didn't do anything to stop it, right? He was responsible. He was there, and he didn't, he was an active player in his death,
Well, and I imagine she probably was present at maybe all of the defendants' cases. And if they're all saying, it wasn't me,
somebody did it.
At some point, you have to stand back and go, well, it was somebody. You're all telling the same lie.
Yeah.
From a legal standpoint, he's obligated to put forth his best defense. But now I'm confused. If there's a plea bargain, why are they in open court? I guess they still have court case, even if there's a plea bargain. So it's like all of the facts are stated.
I'm watching The Good Wife right now. I should know some of this, right?
We've watched enough TV. We know how this works. Yeah, so you walk into court with the plea bargain already settled, but you still have to admit to what you've done, and you still have to establish the facts of the case in open court. So he's saying that he's in open court knowing that he's not trying to prove his innocence, or he's not trying to prove he's not guilty with like a jury trial. He's just stating the facts in open court, knowing that he's going to get that sentence or lower. It's either 9 years or lesser. And so even then, he's got this plea bargain sewn up, meaning it's not going to get worse for him if he wants to say exactly his role in what happened and be remorseful and apologetic. Like, he could have played this completely different, but instead he believed this lie about him participating in a mitigated way. It's like he had this big chance to really say something that was true and powerful, and maybe something that would,
well, because
alleviate a little bit of the hurt that the victim's wife was feeling and going through, and he chose not to do it. And it was probably at his attorney's advice,
because you can maybe get less time, right?
He might have. I mean, they'd already agreed on this 9 years, so that he knows that's what he's getting at the very minimum. Why not just at that moment say, that's what he knows he's getting at the very maximum. Why not? You have a chance to say, I'm sorry. Why not do it?
Well, I'd rather get 8 years.
This is, I think, part of why the title is so multi-layered.
Right.
He still thought he was getting away with the shitty person that he was. He still didn't believe that he was, it's weird because he did believe he was a shitty person, but he still couldn't really admit to what he did in this moment.
Yeah.
He convinced himself he had a reduced role. And if you believe a lie or tell yourself a lie long enough, you do start to believe it. It's easy to get heroin in prison. Who knew?
Apparently. I didn't know that.
He established a little hustle for himself to help with people's cases. He'd get paid in drugs and cash.
I thought he was trying to do a good thing. I was like, oh, the law library. That makes sense because his stepdad.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he has
like
some
Andy
background
Dufresne.
there. Yeah, like cool. I was like, oh, no.
No.
He's trying to get drugs and stuff.
And he talks about how he joins the therapeutic community. And I assume this is like groups of men sitting in like a group therapy session. Like, is that what he's referring to?
And I was like, oh, good. He's trying to. Oh, good. He's talking it. Oh, no.
What did he say? Why did he say that he joined that community?
Because they have access to most drugs.
Oy.
But it looks good on paper, right? It's actually a win-win.
Maybe a little bit of therapy like seeped into his pores,
It's a win-win-win, yeah. It looks good on paper. You still get all the drugs, but maybe
you might get some therapy.
Yeah, you might get some therapy that gets in there.
Well, I don't know if it works because he gets parole and then he turns to meth. In 2004, he's driving around a car full of crimes. Is what I wrote. A car full of crimes. Like, seriously, how many crimes can you drive around with at one time?
Apparently a lot.
In 2004, he said he's arrested 9 times. Anyways, he gets like arrested with this car full of crimes. He's going to go back to jail. They've reduced his sentence because of deals that were made, but no, he's got to have tobacco. When he goes into jail, he has on him contraband, which is the tobacco. And now they have to reopen all of these cases. All the deals are gone because of this little bit of tobacco. At this point, he's in his early 30s. He intentionally skirted the rules so that he could smoke a little bit of bugler tobacco. This is a big turning point. The mountain of evidence says that he sucks. You get to your early 30s.
Yeah.
You can kind of do a self-assessment at that point. How am I doing?
It's proven.
It's been proven.
Yeah.
He's good at getting high in crimes, and he knows it's his fault. And to recognize this, to have no one to blame, to see that your life has basically passed you by because you've just been wanting to get high and numb, and now you're facing down possibly the rest of your life in prison because you had to have a little bit of tobacco. The entitlement
Yeah.
The delusion. He keeps referring to
Yeah.
the entitlement and delusion. And he goes in for another 4 years.
That seems like a waste.
And is he planning to turn it around on the outside? No. He's sober. He doesn't plan to drink or drug again, but he does plan to hustle, a drug hustle on the outside.
Well, that's what he's good at. Well,
That's
not
all he
really.
knows.
That's what he knows. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not good at any of this crime. He's already spent a substantial amount of time in prison. So this is the big turning point now.
10,000 hours, right?
Makes an expert.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Maybe he didn't have the 10,000 hours yet.
How many hours are in a year?
I don't know.
Because he's a pro at jail. He's an expert at jail at this point.
Oh, 8,760.
Yeah, he's an expert at being a con. T, do you believe in fate? Do you believe in serendipity?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, right?
Sometimes it does feel
sprinkling.
like the universe is bringing you something you needed.
Yeah.
And it can take a moment to see everything really clearly. This is a wild moment he talks about. He's getting released. The guard is walking him out. The guard forgets the keys. So the guard leaves him at the gate. Patrick turns around and looks at the prison. And this is such a powerful moment in the episode. He says the clarity washes over him and he knows that he can't go back and he has to leave behind that Patrick in that prison. He won't go back and he won't be that Patrick that's in prison. So now he's walking out with like this, he's still kind of hopeless, right? Like, how do you turn it all around from here? But he's got this rebirth. He's leaving behind bad Patrick and he's going to be out and about as baby. Blank
He
slate.
doesn't have 10,000 hours as good Patrick.
No.
This
He's
is
got
all
nothing.
new.
He's got nothing.
But yeah, that moment.
Can you think of a moment? Can you think of a serendipitous moment in your life that changed it?
Oh, God.
I'm sure I've got tons of them.
I've so many, I feel like.
So many.
So many.
Is it truly serendipitous, or are we ascribing it as such because it felt that way? Are there angels looking out for us? A reckless car ran out of gas before it ran my way.
What's that?
Amy Grant.
Oh.
Near messes all around me, accidents unknown, though I never see with human eyes the hand that lead me home. But I know they're all around me, all day and through the night. This idea that there are these forces that you can't see that are working on your behalf. People say angels, guardian angels.
Okay.
I don't know if I believe in all that, but
Yeah, I don't know, but I think there's something.
sometimes it feels like the universe has aligned so that something works out for you in a way maybe you weren't expecting.
Yeah. I just can't think of any, but there's tons. But yeah, he turns around and sees it, kind of zooms out and sees a prison. If the whole key loss thing doesn't happen, he would have just been walking to the van, like walk. All right, now I'm going to go in the van and just keep going. He wouldn't have had that moment.
It's like you have to give yourself a chance to pause for a moment of clarity.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful to turn around, to be on the outside of this place that's kept you for so many years of your life, to turn around and see it in all of its glory. And you're not entering, you're not exiting, you're just seeing it for what it is. Yeah, I can see how this clarity finally hits him. But he had to be ready for it, right? Like he had to know that it was coming. Because he's already said out loud, or maybe in his own mind, like, I can't blame anything. I can't blame anyone or anything for my life at this point. So when but he still believes that he is a bad person. But when he can see the prison for what it is and knows he has this chance, this little chance to say goodbye to that prison Patrick and leave him behind and be this blank slate, he knows he has to take it. So what does he do? He goes to 12-step. He can smoke. It's warm. They got coffee. And the biggest point is he's in a place where he can't hurt anyone or himself. so powerful. He's starting over. He feels safe. He feels accepted. There's no manipulation. There's no bullshit. And he starts to really listen to what people are saying. He hears these messages of recovery for the first time, recovery and redemption for the first time. And he stays for the next one. And he stays for the next one. This is truly his safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts believing maybe things that he thought was bullshit. Well, you're supposed to like acknowledge there's a creator and say a little prayer for yourself. And he does it. And maybe he's just going through the motions, but he says it because his little prayer is, help me not to hurt anyone today.
It's so simple.
And it's so simple.
That seems to be helping.
And he starts to turn his thinking from entitlement and disillusion and I am bad to, you're going to keep your hands to yourself and you're going to be of service to people. You're going to stop manipulating. You can do good things. It is this change in his self-belief. And all of us has the potential to be violent, and all of us has the potential to be good and to serve. And he does things, little things. You know, maybe he can't affect much change, but he can do little things. And I think, to me, that also makes me feel better to know that these little micro decisions that don't seem like they mean anything, they mean everything. It is important to return your cart when you go to the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
I take great pride in that.
You really do. You talk about that a lot.
I talk about, it's probably my best feature.
You've got really good other features too, but that's one of your best ones. You're right. But there's other ones. But also, you know, doing something every day that might seem hard, but takes like 2 minutes, you know, and just doing it and just being consistent with it. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, you know, take this walk. I'm going to, you know, eat an apple every day, you know, whatever it is, and try to be healthy every day and not make these bad choices every day.
Leave a clean bathroom the way you found it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is those little things that we have power to do.
And it's ripple effect.
It's a ripple effect. It can start building
is a ripple effect.
I think so.
I mean, it's already ripple affected me.
Because it's a shift in your mind.
Because now I have to do it.
Do you do it because you know I do it?
I don't even know if I do it because you do it. I don't know if I did it because before I knew you did it. I definitely do it now. I always do it. I did it yesterday. I felt weird. I was like the cart place to put the cart was
carousel.
Behind. The carousel was behind where my car was, and I was like, no, I'm gonna bring it all the way back to, because I wanted to bring it behind. Now
you can't
the
take
energy
it back
to do that, and somebody else is gonna be the energy to bring it back this way. So now I'm gonna bring it all to the way to the front.
Yeah,
I'm like, why am I fucking doing this?
Because you know, shit. I'm watching. Well, who are these assholes that just push a cart up onto like a grassy median? That seems like a lot of effort. Just walk your ass back. You can't walk your ass back.
And then someone has to like grab that and do the thing.
And justify it. Well, I'm giving them job security. Anywhoosie, put your damn cart away, people. I know our audience does it.
For sure.
If you take anything from this episode, and it's weird because doing these little things every day that ticks by, that he hasn't hurt someone or himself, he starts to feel okay. And then he goes back to school. Now that he's had this lived experience, he can really enjoy his studies for the first time. And he does really well. He ends up being the speaker for his class in 2014. And of course he graduates, but he can't find a job. And why can't he find a job? Because he's convicted felon, like multiple felon.
Yeah.
And people don't want to take a chance on someone like that. They end up pregnant. Baby boy born on my birthday.
Is this all information that wasn't in the episode?
Yeah, that was not.
Jeez. Like,
his wife's birthday.
I really didn't listen to this episode. I listened to it 3 times and I don't have any of this down. Born on Elly's birthday. What?
His wife has the same birthday too.
Whoa.
I know.
Awful people. cart put awayers, though. Am I right?
He has to go back to telemarketing, which he hated, and it hurt my soul to know he had to do that. And when you can't find a job, you just stay in school. So he found a doctoral program, and then he discovered this postdoc position that was made for him. And it's his past is now part of his professional identity, which is just incredible. And this is his whole, he's just come so far. Now he works in public health. He uses his past to help others. He's moved from being stuck in his own delusional head to this idea that he can contribute to the greater whole. That's huge. I feel like I get stuck in my head a lot, and I've said out loud to my mother even, I was stuck in my head. I didn't want to live. I've said stuff like that to her, and she's like, instead of being so freaking selfish and self-centered and in your own head, why don't you go help someone else?
Yeah.
She's like, before you can bow out, you got to try to help somebody else. And she was absolutely right. You got to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
There are people, there are things that you can do.
Really good advice.
Right?
Yeah.
She's like, go volunteer. Before you end it all,
Yeah.
go volunteer somewhere.
You could be of service to so many people.
Yeah.
Instead of just being...
Life sucks.
Yeah. Even just this cart thing is of service.
I'll just start going to parking lots.
I know.
And putting carts away.
And that's already helping.
When I was a kid, she used to take us to, I remember this, we'd fill a little basket with hard candies, like the little butterscotch candies or peppermints. And we'd go to retirement homes and just say hello to people that live there.
Yeah.
It makes so much,
my mom would love that.
People's days,
Especially little kids.
My mom did that for us.
Little kids going over there giving you little hard candies. And old people, I don't know what it is, and this must be a generalization, love butterscotch candies. And I'm getting there myself.
I love a good butterscotch.
Yeah. Ugh, I love those.
And if you have an addict in your life that you're dealing with, just remember they're not bad. They're just sick. And we're all trying to do the best we can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. I mean, I probably sit and list the ways that I'm a failure, like more time than I should, just constantly cataloging all of the ways that I'm a fuck up and I suck and, I'm not interested in the world, da-da-da-da. But no one can say that I'm not trying to do the best that I can, because I do. I still try to do the best that I can. And at some level, if you're in it, you're having a tough time, that's all you can do. Just know that. Are you doing the best that you can? Yeah, and that's all you can do.
Keep doing that.
Keep doing it. Thank you for listening. This has been an episode of Trauma Bonded. You can find our show where podcasts are kept. Please rate and review us. Thanks to Patrick Hibbard for sharing their story and giving us the opportunity to talk about it. And thanks to the This Is Actually Happening team, including Whit, Missildine, and Andrew Waits, and to the maker of our music and website, Nathaniel Trimboli. And thanks to Cathy Sitzes for editing this episode, and to Katie Cable for building those blasted Instagram posts. She uses Canva. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. You can find us on Gmail. We have an Instagram account. We even have a website. We are here to listen. Come listen with us. We are trauma bonded to the story, to the storyteller, to the listeners, and to each other. One final thing before I sign off. T, have you watched that documentary on Hulu called Will and Harper yet?
Haven't heard of it.
I'll give you the broad strokes. It's Will Ferrell and Harper Steele, whose dead name is Andrew Steele.
Oh, they go on a road trip or something.
Yeah, Andrew, her dead name, Andrew, had been Will's writer on SNL for 30 years or something. And she reached out to him via email and said, I'm transitioning, basically. Like, I want you to get to know me as a woman now. And now they did this cross-country road trip that's a documentary. It's fantastic. Bawling my eyes out. It's highly recommend.
Oh, okay.
It's just really, really fun. It's fun, and the implications of how this relationship changes on this very personal level is apparent. And then just seeing how she has to interact with people that know she's trans. I mean, she is open. She says, I just transitioned last year, and she goes to parts of the country that maybe might not be open to that experience. But then she's got Will Ferrell there with her that's almost like a buffer, because everyone knows who Will Ferrell is,
And they're hilarious, probably, because she wrote for him And he's hilarious.
Yeah. And it's just so poignant and just Niagara Falls the whole time.
Okay.
Highly recommend.
Okay, good.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Love you, T.
Love you, Elly. Good job. Hey, thank you.
Hey, thank you. Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Trauma bonded.